Hey everybody, welcome to the Cutting Sketch Design channel. My name is Antonio, and in today's video we'll be talking about everything you need to know about perspective, why it is such a crucial skill to master, and how many aspects of it are often overlooked by beginning artists. So once again, excited to get started and hope you are too. So in today's video, I wanted to address one of the most important fundamental skills when it comes to creating believable designs, and that is perspective. I think a common misconception with beginning artists is that they tend to go through perspective 101 and then just call it quits and move on. And there's actually so much more layers to the fundamental skill that is perspective than just drawing boxes in a 1-point, 2-point, or 3-point perspective. And that's the kind of thing that I wanted to address today. Now, before we get started, I wanted to share two amazing resources that I think will immensely change the way you look at perspective in general. The first and foremost book is this baby right here. You guys probably already heard of it. It's called How to Draw by Scott Robertson and Thomas Bertling. It's a fantastic book. It gradually builds up in complexity to help any beginning artist go from drawing simple shapes to more complex shapes to very believable shapes. They talk about design. They have an amazing app that goes along with the book that you can download in the App Store, probably the Android Store as well. And you can just follow along. There's some guided pages. Like you can see right here. Let me have a look. There's these guided pages that have like a YouTube signature. You can just scan it with the app and the tutorial will pop up. So great book. Definitely recommend this one to anyone starting learning how to draw. I still go through it probably once a year just to check my perspective skills, to pick up new things. I always pick up new things from this book, so definitely a recommended book. So the second resource is also a book, but it's not necessarily made for concept artists or illustrators. It's called Sketching the Basics by Koos Essen and Rosalien Steur. They're Dutch artists and they're actually product designers. So this book is more intended for product designers and architects, but it's a fantastic book for anyone trying to learn perspective and design and presentation and any of those sorts of things. So definitely a recommendation. This is I think this is a true contender to the How to Draw book by Scott Robertson. The thing I really love about this book is it taught me how to it taught me a shorthand on how to draw ellipses and cylinders in perspective, and that's an invaluable thing to have. So definitely check this one out as well. Now, if you don't have any immediate access to these books or you don't want to purchase them, that's completely fine. I'll share some great YouTube resources, like free YouTube resources in the description of people that I think have some really great content. I don't know any of these people, but I just think I've went through their tutorials as well. So yeah, they're great content creators and they have some good stuff when it comes to drawing perspective. All right, so that's it. Enough of looking at me talking. Let's get into phase one. So in this intro phase that I refer to as Perspective 101, you want to familiarize yourself with the rules of perspective without complicating things by drawing complex shapes. So for this phase, stick to drawing boxes only. Again, this is not a tutorial. There are plenty of good resources already available on this subject, which I'll be sharing in the description. I just want to provide you with a simple structure to learn this fundamental skill. You're going to want to learn everything you need to know about 1-point, 2-point, and 3-point perspective at this phase. When you're learning each of these aspects, try and fill at least 50 pages per subject, sticking to drawing boxes only. Start with drawing every step from horizon line to vanishing point to guidelines to get a good sense of the rules. Once you feel confident, eliminate some of the steps until you can start drawing boxes without guidelines. Repeat this process for every subject matter, 1 point, 2 point, and 3 point. Now once you feel comfortable with phase 1, try moving on to phase 2. In this phase, you want to repeat learning the fundamental rules of perspective and start applying them to all basic geometric shapes, which is the cube, which you've been doing extensively in phase 1, the cylinder, the cone, and the sphere. Once again, try to fill at least 50 pages per shape with all 3 perspective disciplines you've learned so far. Drawing spheres in perspective might seem a bit odd to do, since they look the same from any angle. However, try to construct a sphere using ovals. This will help you a lot when you're trying to understand contour lines when drawing organic shapes. You might find it challenging to draw a cylinder or a cone in perspective, so here are a few tips to get you started. The easiest one is to draw a box first, then draw a circle on one of the planes of that box, which will result in an oval, which is basically a circle in perspective. Do this on the other side of that box as well, and then connect them with perspective lines. Now, if I draw a line through the center of this box, you'll see I have cut this oval in half, so that when I fold it over, it will cover the other half perfectly. This is one of the best shorthands I've seen when it comes to guesstimating on how to draw cylinders in any perspective. The theory behind this is illustrated beautifully in the book Sketching the Basics, which I mentioned before. However, just to sum things up, a cylinder is constructed out of ovals. An oval has 2 attributes. It has a long axis and a short axis. Now these axes are perpendicular to one another, meaning they're in a 90-degree angle. This is important to remember. Another thing to remember is that the short axis will usually follow one of the perspective guidelines going to a vanishing point. When we then draw our long axis perpendicular to this guideline, we have a great shorthand to draw our oval, remembering that it must be cut in half by the short axis and must fold over perfectly to cover its other half. This method also allows you to find the other vanishing point, illustrated briefly here. However, if you care to learn more about this, check out the resources I shared in the video or in the description below. Alright, so once you feel comfortable with phase 1 and phase 2, you can pretty much just start having a bit of fun. I think that this is where I usually help a lot of people that did a mentorship with me. I gave them some assignments to help them break down their favorite subjects. So for instance, if you're a character designer or you want to get into character design like I do, a great way to practice your perspective is take all the simple shapes and simple geometry that you learned from phase 1 and phase 2 and apply it to the figure. So for instance, take an anatomy book or take a figure sheet off the internet and create your own reference sheet, meaning you take the figure, break it down into the simple shapes that you think it consists of. Don't follow any other guides, make your own reference sheet, because it's much better to hardwire into your brain. So you take a general reference sheet and you make your own reference sheet based upon it. So you break the head down into a simple box, you make a box for the shoulder girdle, you make a sphere for the torso, a box for the pelvis again, maybe some cylinders for the legs, some cylinders for the arms, and you just build the figure into simple shapes, and remembering the proportions that you get from the online reference sheet or some anatomy book that you have with you, and try to really start having fun with just figurine poses. So this is crucial for any character designer. You want to be able to draw a character in any perspective, in any pose, not being completely reliant on reference, because you won't always have reference available or the right reference available, and you might not have time to shoot your own reference. Maybe if you're working in a studio on a tight deadline, your art directors will be like, okay, we need this, this, and this, and we need it by tonight. You're gonna want to have some good visual library that you can pull from, and being able to break down the figure into simple geometric shapes helps a ton. Because if you want to draw a figure in perspective without thinking about anatomy or without thinking about complex shapes, just breaking it down into simple shapes, but keeping it believable and in the right proportion, already gets you like 80% of the way started. So definitely give that a go. So phase 3 might look like this. Cool, so in phase 3, pick a subject close to the discipline you care to pursue. Meaning, if you might want to become a character designer, go with the figure. If you'd rather be a prop or a mech designer, look up robotics, mechanical joints, pivots, military vehicles, etc. If you'd rather become a environment artist, look up rocks, trees, architecture, you name it. You can break any of them down into basic forms anyway. This is what you want to strive to do. It's actually pivotal that you do. For this example, I'm gonna go with the figure. I have a figure reference sheet I grabbed off of the internet, and I'm gonna construct my very own mannequin using basic shapes I want to use. Once I have reference for all angles, I start sketching out different poses and stances using only the basic shapes I've just constructed. Now, you can use real-life references, you can use any kind of reference, or you could try and make some up out of your imagination. The choice is really yours, just have fun with it. This exercise will immensely boost your visual library and understanding of perspective, figure proportion, design, you name it. As you can see, I have a hard time keeping my shapes straight, and that's because I'm fairly used to drawing my figures in a more gestural manner. So a good way to start learning to do this is go back to the basic shapes and start warping them. It's a really fun exercise I often do to warm up before I go to work. Okay, so create one full page of studies and breakdowns of your chosen subject's proportions, shapes, and structure. Then try and fill at least 50 pages with that subject in different poses, compositions, perspective, etc. Alright guys, have fun. Alright, so repeating phase 1 to phase 3 will already give you a ton of assignments to get you going for the next couple of weeks. So I definitely encourage you to get started with that. Start with phase 1. If you're a complete beginner, you can start with phase 2. I would recommend anyone actually to start with phase 2 if you already have some basic understanding of perspective, but still go through phase 2. And then move on to phase 3. Have some fun with that, with any given subject of your choosing. And then you can start moving on to more complex shapes. What I like to do is I like to look at a lot of product designers. So for instance, I will grab household things like a mouse or a monitor, in-ear headset, something that just has a complex shape to it, and I would study it and then break it down into simple shapes first, and then try to build upon those simple shapes and make that thing look believable. Now there's a lot more to perspective than I can really get into in this video without it being too long. So if you want to know more about how to break down simple shapes, how you can segment complex structures in perspective, I would really recommend checking out one of the books that I recommended in the beginning of this video. The one by Scott Robertson and Thomas Bertling, or that one of Sketching the Basics by Koos Assen and Rosalind Steur. They are absolutely amazing books, and they're just fantastic to help you understand how you can break down complex forms. So I'm gonna leave it here for this video. I thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you liked the content. I will post the assignment in just the description of this video, or maybe I'll just add it at the ending of this video. We'll see. I'll just post the assignment on this video or in the description, and you can just try it out for yourself. See if it helps. Let me know. Let me know if you found this helpful, or you wanted to know anything more about perspective that I might be able to elaborate on. Feel free to tell me that as well. All right, that's it for me, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye bye, guys.